I hope you're all staying at home right now. I hope you're taking care. I think I should probably do a proper video soon for my new followers, just to like tell you a bit about myself. For now, what I'll say is that I love reading autobiographies by retired footballers and cricketers, so I thought, why not make some videos on my favourite sports icons' journeys? And I am open to suggestions, by the way, guys, so do comment below with your favourite footballer or cricketer, and I'll see if I can produce something like this. It only seemed right to start with my first video on Alan Shearer's life. He has a really special place in my heart, and I am a Newcastle fan after all, so I can appreciate how he played a huge part in that defining era at the club under Kevin Keegan's management. So this video is just going to outline his career timeline, the good, the bad, the ugly. So make sure you guys subscribe, because I'll be uploading a lot more regularly now and you don't want to miss out. I really hope you enjoy this one, so let's get straight to it. So where did it all start for young Alan? Well, he's a Geordie through and through, and in 1970 he was born in Gosforth, which is in Newcastle upon Tyne, England. And his working class parents were Anne and Alan Shearer Sr., and his dad was a sheet metal worker. So Alan pretty much remained in his hometown all throughout his childhood, and he was always encouraged by his dad to play football in his youth, and he played it all throughout school. Interestingly, in his book, it's called My Illustrated Career, he spoke about his younger years playing on the streets of Gosforth, and he said that he played in midfield actually, because it allowed him to get more involved in the game. He wasn't always the super striker that we know him to be. So Alan captained his school team, and he actually led them to win a seven-a-side tournament, which was played at St James's Park. And this win really encouraged him to take his talent and interest a little more seriously. So as a teen, Alan joined the amateur Wallsend Boys Club. Now, for those of you that don't know, the club actually have quite the reputation for nurturing and producing footballing talent. For example, like Steve Bruce went there, Michael Carrick, Peter Beardsley, Steve Watson, Lee Clark, Stephen Taylor. It was actually at Wallsend where teenage Alan was scouted by Jack Hickson, who worked for Southampton at the time, and that was a pretty defining moment at the start of Alan's journey, because he then went on to train for the club in his summers. In Alan's autobiography, 2007 autobiography, he referred to that time as the making of me. It was in 1986 when Alan joined the Southampton youth team, and just 2 years later he was promoted to the first team. And he made his debut in a game against Chelsea, but he just came on as a sub. So 2 weeks later, in his full debut for Southampton, he actually made history. So Southampton won 4-2 in the game against Arsenal, played at the Dell, and Alan scored a hat-trick. At 17 years and 240 days old, he actually became the youngest player in top division football to bag a hat-trick. So a little more about that dream debut. Danny Wallace was ruled out of Southampton's game against Arsenal. As part of the Moments That Made Me series with Dream Team, Alan recalled that defining day of his career, and he said, "Chris Nichol, the manager at the time, came to me and said, 'You're in.' There was no time for my family to come down from Newcastle, and there was no time for me to get nervous." He then said, this is hilarious, "I had my pre-match meal, which I'll always remember was fillet steak. I'd never had fillet steak before in my life, and the only reason I asked for it was because one of the big hitters, Jimmy Case, had said he wanted it." So imagine that being the first time you have fillet steak. Like, that is truly memorable. He went on that evening to break Jimmy Greaves' youngest hat-trick record. It was a huge moment for young Al. Funnily enough, at the time, he was still a £35 a week apprentice at the club, so the very next day he was called in to clean the boots and kits. And Chris Nichol, he found the apprentice chores as a really good way for the young lads to stay grounded, and it included cleaning the toilets, the changing rooms, cleaning the kits and the boots. Looking back on that debut, Alan told Sun Sport that his mum and dad have still got the video cassette of the match and the match ball in their house, and Alan also said he still got all of the newspaper cuttings because he was up early the next day reading every single report before he went in to clean the boots and the kits. So it's no surprise, just 5 days later, he signed his first professional contract, and although the debut couldn't have gone better, he didn't actually make regular first team starts that season of 88-89, and he made just 10 goalless appearances. So Alan spent 5 seasons in total with the Saints, and he was really at the centre of their attack, and his strength allowed him to create opportunities for teammates whilst adding to that modest goal tally of his own as their lone striker. He played between wide men, Rod Wallace and Matt Letizia. In '91, the Southampton fans, they voted Alan as their player of the year, and recently Alan said in an interview, "I owe Southampton because they launched my career. They gave me the start." So the Saints obviously have a special place in his heart. So how did Alan's Southampton departure come about? Well, just to further establish the buzz Alan had created for himself at just 20 years old, let's take a look at 1991. So it was a pretty pivotal year for Alan. He married his wife Lania, he'd met her in Southampton, and he was also earning an exciting reputation in his international performances. He'd been playing for the England under-21 squad for a year already under Dave Sexton, and during this time with the squad, he actually scored 13 times in 11 games, and it's a record which is currently still unbeaten. So the summer of '91 was a particularly inspiring one for Alan. He was a member of the England national under-21s in the Toulon tournament in France. He scored 7 goals in 4 games there. So naturally, that 91-92 season meant Alan was talk of the town, and national interest in him grew day by day. It's no surprise that he went on to earn his senior squad call-up by England manager Graham Taylor in February 1992, and he managed to score on debut, and England beat France 2-0, and it was in an international friendly. So come summer of 1992, Alan was embarking on a promising international career. After 5 seasons with Southampton, it's no surprise he was in demand, and rightfully so. So Ian Branfoot, he was the manager at the time at Southampton, he wisely accepted that a sale was inevitable, and he claimed that whatever happens, we are in the driving seat. So understandably, he was the most popular manager in English football. Leading up to the summer of '92, Alan had already been linked in the press with several clubs, most notable Man United, Liverpool, but nothing really materialised, and it was the first season of the newly formed Premier League. God, I feel old. After a number of phone calls from clubs trying to bargain with players that they didn't want with bucket loads of cash, Ian Branfoot agreed on a deal to sell Alan to Blackburn Rovers, and the fee was £3.6 million, and the deal involved David Speedy making his way to Southampton, reluctantly so. By the way, despite Ian Branfoot settling on the final deal, Southampton actually failed to include a sellout clause, so in later years I'm sure they came to regret that given what was in store for Alan. So, after 43 goals and 158 appearances at Southampton, Alan was about to make his mark in the Premier League as one of the most prolific goal scorers. Okay, this is where his journey gets even more exciting. So, Alan really hit the ground running at Blackburn. He recently told James Robinson at Dream Team, "I'd got the call of Southampton to say Blackburn were interested in buying me, and I was more than willing to speak to the great Kenny Dalglish. I went up and signed, and then we went to Crystal Palace away, where I scored 2 decent goals from outside the area." So his first home game that followed this was against Arsenal. So Alan evidently had a thing for making debuts against the Gunners. Thanks to Alan's 84th minute winning goal, Blackburn Rovers got their first Premier League season off to a really good start. And Alan recalls the moment. He said, "I'd peeled off the defenders and nudged Jimmy Carter to the touchline before heading straight for goal. It took a little deflection, and then I saw it going over David Seaman's head and into the back of the net. The crowd went mad. As any forward will tell you, if you get off to a good start, it doesn't half help." So, in Alan's first season at Blackburn, he scored 16 goals in the 21 games he featured. He was actually out for half the season with an injury he'd endured in December '92 in a game against Leeds United, but he was back fully fit for the '93-94 Premier League season, and there was no stopping him. 31 goals got Alan Player of the Season, and Blackburn finished runners-up of the Premier League. So, on the international front, Allen scored his second goal for England against Turkey, which was in November 1994, and it was a 4-0 win. However, from January to May, Allen was actually out due to injury, and England failed to qualify for the 94 World Cup finals due to a poor run of form. So moving on to the 94-95 Premier League season, it was a really huge one for Blackburn. Chris Sutton, he had arrived from Norwich City on a £5 million deal, and he and Allen formed an explosive attacking partnership. It resulted in a nickname, I'm sure some of you will be familiar with this, SAS. By the way, this was long before Daniel Sturridge and Luis Suarez borrowed the acronym. So, Sutton ended the season with 15 goals and 17 assists, and Allen, 34 goals and 16 assists. Blackburn were evidently thriving in their glory days because of Allen's impact performances, and Chris Sutton's arrival, that it had just launched them that little bit further to clench the club's first domestic title since 1914. So as far as strike partners go, they really did create something special in the mid-90s, and I think out of like a handful of powerful duos we saw in that era across all clubs, like Andy Cole, Dwight York at Man United for example, I think what makes the SAS partnership just all the more memorable and perhaps underrated was the huge impact that it had on Blackburn's journey as the champions of that season. So they remained on top form all throughout the season, and in terms of playing style, there wasn't much that set them apart. Like, they both had pace, they both had brilliant aerial game and unmatched precision in and outside the 18-yard box. Now, Chris Sutton, his clinical nature helped him in his hard graft around the pitch, and Big Al's work ethic and that energy going forward was a force to be reckoned with. So let's just put into perspective the magnitude of Allen's individual performance that season. He'd scored 34 goals, and that actually equalled Andy Cole's record, which was set for the previous year at Newcastle United. Now, this record is actually still unbeaten. Like, Ronaldo and Suarez got 31 in their season-long rampages, but yeah, no one's got to 34 yet. So once Allen was asked by 442 in an interview what his goal-scoring secret is, he replied, "Get your head and knee over it to keep the shot down, and strike the ball with your laces to generate power." Sounds easy, doesn't it? Do you guys remember what Allen said when asked by press how he was going to celebrate the title win for Blackburn? He said the next day he was going to creosote his fence, one of Allen's self-confessed hobbies. So what followed that wonder season for Blackburn Rovers? Well, despite Allen ending the 95-96 season as the Premier League top scorer, Blackburn actually failed to retain their title, and they finished 7th in the league. Now, the summer of 1996 really is a standout chapter for Allen. As we discussed, he'd made his England debut in 1992, but he was yet to really make his mark on the international platform. So despite not having scored an England goal in 2 years, Terry Venables was the England manager at the time. He included Allen in the Euro 96 squad. So I came across a really nice little stats table for England's Euros campaign, and I think it really illustrates how Allen helped England progress to the semi-finals at Wembley. So let's take a look at that table.
So in the first game against Switzerland, Allen scored 22 minutes in. Then against Scotland, he scored once again. Then Allen and Teddy Sheringham had a cracker of a game against the Netherlands. They both scored twice and it ended 4-1. So the quarterfinals against Spain ended as a goalless draw, and it moved on to a nervy penalty shootout. The table doesn't actually feature the pens, but yeah, Allen scored the first one, followed by Platt, Pearce and Gascoigne, sending England into the semi-final against Germany to be played in front of their own fans at Wembley.
Sadly, in the end, it wasn't coming home. This is where the England squad came so close to glory and lost on penalties to Germany. When I do the Gareth Southgate video, I think I'll go into more detail as to how it all panned out. So no Euro 96 final for England, but Allen's individual international campaign really was outstanding. He was instrumental in their journey to the semi-final, and he left the tournament with the Golden Boot. And it was a summer that defined football in the 90s, and Allen played a huge role in that. So let's set the scene. Summer of 96 is over. Across 4 impressive seasons at Blackburn Rovers, Allen scored 112 league goals in 138 games. So he led Blackburn to secure their first Premier League title. He was awarded 2 Premier League Golden Boots, the PFA Players Player of the Year, and the Premier League Player of the Year. So the next stage of Allen's journey is particularly special to me, of course, and I think I'll enjoy talking about it the most. So let's get to it. Understandably, Allen was hot property after the '96 summer. Manchester United again were keen to sign Allen, and interestingly, former Man United chairman Martin Edwards, he spoke about it fairly recently for NBC Sports, and it was on this feature called Beyond the Page. Anyways, he summarised what happened pretty well. Shearer had been to Alex Ferguson's house, spoke to him and assured him he wanted to come. The problem, I think, was with the chairman of Blackburn, Jack Walker. He was not a great fan of Man United. We were local rivals, both Lancashire clubs. He did not want Alan Shearer to come to Manchester United. Shearer was quite close to Walker, who was like a father figure to him, and I don't think Alan wanted to upset him by coming to United. And I'm not sure Jack would have let him come anyways, whereas he was happy for Alan to go on to Newcastle. I don't think that was a threat to him. I think that explains his side of the story pretty well. So what did Alan do? He signed with Manchester United's title rivals, his boyhood club, Newcastle United. And it just made sense because at the time it was managed by Kevin Keegan, who was Alan's hero, and he was bought for a world transfer record-breaking £15 million. That's equivalent to around £28 million today. So Alan's time in the Toon, it means a lot to me. I'm sure like many other Newcastle fans, I was old enough to understand how it was the defining era for the club, and I idolised Alan for his involvement in that. I've always lived down south, but because my dad introduced me to Newcastle, I got to share that passion, and I actually shared my first Newcastle match memory with Newcastle Fans TV recently. So, okay, I was about 5 years old, and my dad and uncle took me up to Newcastle for the weekend, and it was for the Newcastle Man City game. It was September '95, we won 3-1, Les Ferdinand, he scored 2 goals, and I've literally been in love with Ginola ever since. I think nothing can compare and nothing can prepare you for the magic of St James's Park, and to be part of the most passionate fan base in the football world, it really is a special feeling. So as young as I was at the time, I sort of knew the significance of Alan Shearer signing in July '96 and what it really meant for the club. I guess you could say it was a bittersweet summer for Newcastle. Like under King Kev's management, Newcastle had transformed from Division 1 relegation candidates to Premier League title contenders. That was just in 4 years. So despite taking English football by storm with their explosive 1995 campaign, it ended in heartbreak. Like the entertainers got painfully close to clinching the league title, just to have Man United come out on top with a 4 points difference. So the timing of this move was enormous. By the way, have any of you guys read Kevin Keegan's book? It's called My Life in Football. Not to go off on a tangent, but it is a brilliant read, and the way his journey is told in his own way, like wearing his heart on his sleeve all the time, and reliving all the great memories of his career, it's definitely a must read, and he's a true icon, and I'm not just saying that as a Newcastle fan, like he truly is. I'll obviously be doing a King Kev video soon.
Love it if we beat them.
For now, here are some passages that I think have relevance to Alan's signing and how it went about.
The only reason Alan ever came here is because he wanted to. I went to a little mining house in Pontefract to meet him and his advisor called Tony Stevens. He said that he's desperately keen to come, but he does have other options. I said Newcastle must have a big pull, and he said, yeah, it does. Otherwise, I wouldn't be speaking to you. Alan said, I don't want any involvement on the financial side of the deal. I just want to know one thing. Can I have the number 9 shirt? I said, you've got it. And he said, I'll see you on Monday.
So that's the long and short of it. At just 25 years old, Alan's deal even broke Ronaldo's world transfer record. And as the returning hero at St James's Park, he was welcomed by thousands of buoyant fans for Newcastle's first home game of the 96-97 season. In an interview with James Robinson for Dream 11 in February this year, Alan recalled the memory of that first home game. He said, "It came to my home debut against Wimbledon. I remember the feeling of walking out. It was as though everything I'd ever wanted had come true. I'd stood on those terraces as a kid, and now I'm walking out onto the pitch at St James's Park with the number 9 shirt on my back as the world's most expensive player. It was my club. I just felt extremely proud." Of course, Alan scored on debut, and he said the roof came off. I can't even imagine the atmosphere at St James's Park in that moment, like the jubilation and the passion for their new number 9, and he's their local hero, and he was showing the fans what he's come to do at the club. So Les Ferdinand was Newcastle's number 9 before Alan's arrival, and he inherited the shirt from Andy Cole just a year prior. Les handed it over to Alan, and he told Planet Football in an interview that he never held a grudge towards Alan for that. Kevin Keegan had anticipated that the Alan Shearer-Les Ferdinand partnership could work for the Magpies, and oh my god, what a dream duo they were. They scored 49 goals between them in that 96-97 season, and it's pretty remarkable considering Alan missed 3 months of the season due to injury, and Les missed 2. So Alan told Planet Football in an interview,
he said, "We were similar. We both loved crosses coming into the box, and with the wingers that we had, with Gillespie, Ginola and Peter Beardsley, it was a very attacking team. So to have the both of us who were very similar centre forwards in the same team worked pretty well."
Alan scored 25 goals in 31 games, so for the 3rd consecutive season, he finished as the Premier League top scorer. He also won another PFA Player of the Year award. The 1998 FIFA World Cup held in France was a really important one for Alan for a number of reasons. Firstly, it was to be his only World Cup tournament. And secondly, he was appointed to captain the side by the New England manager, which was Glenn Hoddle at the time. So England's successful qualification campaign, it was largely down to Alan's consistent goal-scoring form, and he scored 5 goals in total. So in the group stages, Alan scored England's first goal of the tournament against Tunisia. And then in the last 16, England faced Argentina. And it was an eventful clash, to say the very least. Alan scored an equaliser in the first half before things really took a turn in the second half when England went down to 10 men. So David Beckham with that controversial kick out at Diego Simeone, that really changed things around. And Sol Campbell, he scored what would have been the winning goal for England, but it was unfortunately disallowed because Alan had actually elbowed the keeper Carlos Roa. It went to penalties and Alan scored again, but England were eliminated after David Batty's shot was saved. So that ended Alan's first and last World Cup campaign. As disappointing as it ended, Alan's consistent displays earned him a place in English football history, and in interviews, he always fondly recalls memories of being able to captain that dynamic, exciting squad of 1998. So by the time the Euro 2000 tournament came around, Alan was approaching his 30th birthday, and he announced he'll be retiring from international football after the Euros. Now, the Euro 2000, it's often described as one of the greatest international tournaments ever by football writers. It was eventful, it was an exciting time for the competitiveness of European football, and I guess Alan wanted to go out with a bang. He bagged a hat-trick in the qualifier against Luxembourg, and in the final group match, he scored a penalty for England to take the lead against Romania, but things actually didn't end well for England. So under the management of Kevin Keegan, England's Euro 2000 dreams ended. Romania snatched a victory with a dramatic late penalty. It was Alan's final contribution in an England shirt, and he had scored 30 goals for England, and in his 26 caps, he wore the captain's armband 34 times. Although I'm sure he would have wanted to quit international football on a high note, these overall stats are really something to be commended. Back to Alan's time at Newcastle, he played a huge part in Newcastle's journey in the 90s. First off, he managed 206 goals for the club, and that surpassed all the iconic Geordie number 9s that he grew up idolising. Despite lack of silverware, during Alan's time at the club, he led them to a second place finish in the 97 season. Newcastle qualified for the Champions League 3 times. He also helped them reach back-to-back FA Cup finals, and that was in 1998 and 1999. I could honestly sit here all day and talk about Alan's heroics in black and white stripes, and maybe I should do that, just like a separate video dedicated to Alan at Newcastle and the players of the 90s era. For now, I'll just say that I think the most staggering thing about Alan's fruitful decade with Newcastle is his unmatched talent and how he was able to reach career heights that, quite frankly, they'll remain almost impossible to achieve by English talent in years to come. I saw a really interesting comparison article in the Chronicle that puts into perspective how Alan really was a cut above the rest. Alan scored 260 goals in his Premier League career. His closest rival was Andy Cole. He scored 187 times, and Thierry Henry with 175. 58 of Alan's goals were penalties, so his penalty success rate was 84%. He bagged 46 braces and 11 hat-tricks. Unsurprisingly, his record remains unbeaten in the Premier League. So in 2016, an Alan Shearer statue was erected outside St James's Park to properly recognise his career. Here he is at the unveiling ceremony, and as you can see, the statue is doing his infamous goal celebration. So Alan currently works in sports broadcast nowadays as a TV pundit for the BBC. And when I attended the recent FA Cup tie, at Oxford, his broadcast box was directly above the away stand. It was like quite a sight. We sang to him the whole match and we showed him a lot of love. He obviously has a soft spot for the Toon Army, and his achievements in English football will be celebrated for years to come. Like, I honestly enjoyed every single minute of making this video. Not only talking about sports history, but I'm focusing on a hero of mine. Like, I've done my best to make sure all the data I've discussed is accurate, and I really did my research to cross-check. But yeah, if I've made any mistakes, apologies for that. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like it and comment below what you think. Don't forget to subscribe, and I really need recommendations from you guys for the next videos. I guess I'll see you guys soon, and thanks so much for watching. Bye! Bye.